Testing. UnregularRadio.com, Boston's best online radio.
Back live to Hotheads, where activism happens, on UnregularRadio.com, the place we love to be every Saturday, the station that supports free speech. And we haven't even mentioned this week, we got, I don't think either one of you guys saw it yet, but we had a big write-up interview story coming out in a magazine. In the next month it will be out, but it's all written by Kimberly Ellis. Had some great quotes with John Loftus of Unregular Radio, Carmelita, and Heather and myself, and actually Casey Hoy was in it too. It's I can't wait till it comes out. Very exciting. Unregular Radio doing big things and supporting free speech, and I love this station. I love what goes on here all week, 24/7. You know where it's at, unregularradio.com. And we just heard some more music from, you know who it was. It was Tupac. What did we hear on this track, Derek? Actually,
we heard Wonder Why They Call You. Well, first we started with the Wonder Mics, Crawl Back, which they're playing for the Battle for the Rally. And then we heard Wonder Why They Call You a B word. A B word. And then we heard Outlaw.
Yeah, so that was some more Tupac. We're playing a lot of Tupac Shakur today. I hope I say his name right. I always screw up the names. But this next name I'm not going to screw up. We have on the phone waiting patiently. He's the author of Tupac Shakur, the FBI War Against Black Leaders, and his name is John Potash. He's been studying and interviewing people and researching the murder of Tupac and actually his life, what happened in his life, some of the strange instances where maybe some outside pressures were coming into Tupac's life that really shouldn't have been there, and that's what we're going to talk to him about. We're going to get into Tupac's life and some of the recent news that has come out, because there's been a lot of news. A couple of years ago, I talked to John on KOP Productions, a podcast, and since that time, a lot of news has come out that has actually, I think, bolstered the case that our guest made several years before. So I wanted to follow up and talk to him about Tupac, what his life was, what he thinks happened, and find out what he thinks of some of the new books that have come out and some of the topics. If anyone wants to call up too, you can call in at 617-606-4122. And hello, John, are you still waiting on the phone for us?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Mike.
Thanks for being on the show today. You've been studying this a long time. We could give everyone an update, kind of a history of it quickly on, how you got started on this path. Why did you choose to cover? I think that's something that comes up with myself a lot, that I focus on, what happened with Tupac and his life and the lessons. Why do you decide to spend so much time on this one person who's no longer alive? Why is it important?
Yeah, well, the title of the book is The FBI War on Tupac Shakur and Black Leaders, and I was working as a drug and alcohol counselor in the early 90s, and one of the people I was counseling said my father was a Black Panther killed by the police, and I was writing at the time. I was writing a novel, and I used him, this person I was counseling, as just a character in the novel, and so I started researching the Black Panthers, and I found that they were the leading, New York Panthers, and so, that the Shakurs were the leading New York Panthers, and so when I saw in the Washington Post that they said, in another strange twist, the same police that first showed up at his, purported sexual assault scene were the first to show up a year later when he was shot in the New York recording studio lobby. I called his lawyer and said that, do you think they're targeting Tupac like they targeted his Black Panther parents? And when they being the FBI, it came out that the counterintelligence program was an FBI program to target leftist leaders, and particularly brutally target black leftist leaders such as the Black Panthers. So that's what got me started on it in December of 1994, right after Tupac was shot in the New York recording studio lobby on November 30th of 1994, and of course he died about 2 years later, but I published an article locally on that in Washington, and then finally published an article nationally in a CIA whistleblowing magazine called Covert Action Quarterly, which was started by Phil Agee, a high-level CIA whistleblower, and that had about 50 endnotes, and when I published that in 1998, the people closest to him said, you have to turn this into a book, and so I did.
That's mental. So the same responding police officers? It wasn't even just like investigating. It was the first people to respond to both crimes.
Yeah, and so I got a police officer saying that one of the first officers to arrive was part of the street crimes unit, and the street crimes unit was an undercover police unit that you may have heard of in New York. They were famous for shooting Amadou Diallo, I think it was, 50 times, but they were undercover, and they started the exact year that COINTELPRO was supposedly closed, and so they've been implicated in a number of things.
Are they also known as the hip hop police in New York City?
Yes, some of their members were part of the rap unit or hip hop cops.
And people think that this is crazy and this isn't true. And for years, it kind of was bandied about. But you know what? It's been proven to be true now. And you can look it up. Look up New York City hip hop police. It's all documented. This is reality. And if you are around or even talk to any of the people that are major people, like I've had some talks with some people around 50 Cent and his organization. And you know what? I know, and in looking, through interviews that are verified and documented, he's definitely been targeted, and recently, by this hip hop police. Tell us about what you know about the New York City hip hop police.
Well, one of the important things about that particular incident when he was shot in New York is that the media made it out to be an attempted robbery, just a random attempted robbery. But I got the court documents of the doctor who saw Tupac right after the incident, and she described how 2 bullets went in the back of Tupac's skull and came out the front of Tupac's skull. She examined him at the hospital and wrote this up for a court, affidavit. And so, so this was a murder attempt. And Tupac described it, how 1 bullet put him down the ground, and when he was face down, he felt these intense thuds on his head, with his head going against the ground, and he didn't realize what was happening. And he was shot twice in the head. And, of course, the doctor's affidavit confirmed that, and I have a copy of that affidavit in my book and in the documentary, which happened to be, you can find on at Amazon.com. But so with that, we know it was a murder attempt. Now the question is why. So we've got Dexter Isaac coming out within the past year and a half, saying that I was paid to shoot and kill Tupac, and who paid me? It was James Rosemont Henchman. James, or his nickname's Henchman, James Henchman Rosemont, and why is the question? Did he pay him to kill Tupac? Now, granted, new theories say it was this person or that person, but I got some documents, government documents from Alex Jordanov, who was like the French 60 Minutes producer. He came out with an excellent documentary in France that interviewed myself, and he asked for all my sources. So some of my sources I gave him were Michael Treif Warren, the New York trial lawyer for Tupac, and Jamal Joseph, one of the Panther 21, who was a serious mentor to Tupac and is now head of the Columbia University Film Department. And so, of course, he covers them more than myself, but in what I said and what they said, we put across the same thesis, same argument, which is that they were trying to, there was a latter-day COINTELPRO, FBI counterintelligence program that was targeting Tupac because of his wealth and fame. And the New York police overlapped the FBI. They have people that are both considered New York police and FBI.
Yeah.
I've got some of the names of those people, like an Officer McKernan, for example, and different other officers. I have different officers in my book that I named that are actually, was found out, are both FBI and New York police.
Yeah.
And so they, I argue that, they were members of this hip-hop cop unit, this rap unit. And people say, they were just profiling rappers. But a number of articles have come out to show that they were actually using the same counterintelligence program tactics, which included murder.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, when the police supposedly investigated this shooting of Tupac, the security guard, in Kathy Scott's book on Biggie Smalls, she wrote that the security guard offered a surveillance videotape of the whole incident to the police, and the police turned it down and closed the case. So... that's just some of the mounds of evidence.
And Roseman,
this was a assassination attempt.
And Roseman now is finally facing charges, right?
He's facing charges on I think it was drug trafficking, drug dealing, drug trafficking.
And he was a record he's a manager of acts, and I always wonder if you're looking at this, if you're looking at this like going down this train of thought, that maybe a lot of these rappers and people that are in the industry, especially the ones that have power, that get to a certain level, could they also be assets of the intelligence agencies? Could they also be FBI double agents? Could they be CIA? I think this is much more common than people will ever believe.
Oh yeah,
and I am starting to believe it. But at first, when I first talked to you, I wasn't sure back then. But I've been looking at things that have happened, and the things that you said, and the things that Tupac said in his songs. He named henchmen. He named Haitian Jack. And it turned out to be true. Just recently we find out that this stuff is actually true by a real witness who was directly connected, Dexter Isaac, like you said.
Yeah, so I meant to say that those government documents on James Henchman Rosemont showed that he was an informant at least as early as 1994 when the shooting happened.
Yep.
The documents go back to that.
I mean, we in Boston, you have to look at the FBI and Whitey Bulger and how Whitey got away with. That was like a COINTEL operation in my mind. The way that they did that, it was this stuff that has gone on has been insane. That you have FBI informants allowed to kill people and get away with it, and the FBI does nothing about it for years. And it seems like the same type of thing was going on in the hip-hop community. This is how they gain power. They find the biggest, baddest people with no morals to take over and give them power to be agents and not to be charged with the crimes that they're committing. That is what I think has been happening. My question, though, there's so much that's happened. We could get into the rape. I want to get into that, too. But I want to talk about Suge Knight and Puff Daddy and the new cop book that came out from the former police detective that came out. He came out with a new book. What is his name? I know you know his name.
Yeah, Greg Kading.
Greg Kading came out with a book. What's the name of the book?
I can't remember the name of it. Yeah.
You can look it up. Greg Kading has been speaking. He basically says that Suge Knight killed Biggie Smalls, and that Puff Daddy killed Tupac. Through Keefe Davis. I'm not buying it all, especially the way the people he's relying on have reasons to lie. Number one, Number two, it's like it's just too convenient. There's so much convenience in this coming out now. I also wonder if Puffy and Suge aren't also fall guys. Maybe they were compromised, but why don't people look at the record label itself? If you're going to look at someone as being FBI or CIA, I would say Jimmy Iovine and his record label that owned Tupac before he was with Death Row and after he was with Death Row, who did Tupac's mom sue and get money from. It wasn't Suge Knight. It was from Jimmy and Interscope Records. And it seems like
it was Suge Knight, but you could be right.
It was Interscope through Jimmy that actually wrote the check. And if you look into, same thing with Puff Daddy. Now I believe he's working for Jimmy.
But I think when you look at these individual people like Jimmy and Puffy, I think it's kind of taking the eyes off the bigger picture of it, because for Puffy, he was targeted. I believe he was targeted to be killed when he got into activism, and he quickly backed off because he was not committed like Tupac. So I think Greg Kading's book is one huge whitewash. I mean, for many reasons. I skimmed the book. It wasn't worth my time to read 500 plus pages. As soon as I saw that he completely dismissed Russell Poole, whose life has been ruined trying to get to the bottom of Tupac and Biggie's murders. Russell Poole was a high-level white police detective. He received loads of commendations. He was featured by Nick Broomfield in the movie Biggie and Tupac. He was featured in an excellent book called Labyrinth by Randall Sullivan, a veteran writer for Rolling Stone and Vanity Fair and other magazines. And Labyrinth just took all his files, all Russell Poole's files, because Russell Poole was got himself assigned to Biggie Smalls' murder investigation. His supervisor was made the co-lead for that investigation. He basically went against his supervisor and did a lot of his own work, his own serious detective work, and found, he said, when in Biggie and Tupac, the film, that my fellow police officers were at all levels of Death Row Records, and they killed Biggie Smalls in order to cover up their murder of Tupac Shakur. So that's the highest source you can get.
Who said that?
A year-long investigation. He was the first person assigned. He got himself to be the first person assigned to it all because of something that happened before then. He was his father was a cop. He was white, and he did not, so they thought that he would buy into their racism when they told them that you can consider these dozens and dozens of police officers at all the levels of death row records covert agents. And he's quoted as saying that his supervisor told him that,
Russell Poole said that.
And so he found everything that's going on. Here comes, Greg Kading, many, many years later, 10, 12 years later after Russell Poole said all this on film and in a mainstream published book. And he says Russell Poole's been blown out of the water, all of his investigations absurd and ridiculous, and none of it is real.
Yeah.
Where does he get that from? That's Russell Poole lost his wife, he lost his job, he quit his job in order to get the information out because they were ruining his life at work once he started trying to get this information out. And he's in bad shape now because of just trying to get the truth out.
Yeah.
And so for Greg Kading to dismiss everything he came out with is just a shame. It's just like it just shows that's a big whitewash. That Greg Kading's book is all whitewash.
It certainly looks that way to me. What about Tupac's relatives? His mom, his half brother Mopreme. What have they had to say about? I know that they've said some. At least Mopreme has said some things. What have they been officially on the record, off the record? What do they say about the murder? What do they think right now?
Well, Watani Tayahimba was a longtime friend of Afeni Shakur. He was a Los Angeles Black Panther. He was Tupac's business manager, and he was a national security director of the New African People's Organization, which Tupac was part of for many years. And so he says that Afeni has stopped getting political about all this because she's scared, rightfully scared. I mean, she's lived her life under U.S. intelligence watch, U.S. intelligence harassment. U.S. intelligence tried to arrest her. They did obviously arrest her, and they put her in jail for years, and they tried to put her in jail for the rest of her life. So she's keeping away from the radical political side of it all, except she did back Cynthia McKinney when Cynthia McKinney put a bill through Congress to say we want all of Tupac's government documents. And it was modeled after the JFK bill to get all the JFK documents. And because Cynthia McKinney knew there was an incredible amount of documents on Tupac. And so she did a press conference with Cynthia McKinney to get all the government documents. Now, of course, the Justice Department told me that there's over 4,000 pages in Tupac's FBI file. They weren't supposed to tell me that, but someone slipped with that, and I think it was because she liked Tupac. And so I paid for over 4,000 pages to be copied and sent to me, and they only sent me 99, and they said for national security reasons they weren't giving me the rest, the other 3,900 pages. But so that's where Afeni is when she's, she does some things, but she tries to stay a little away from it all. She told me, that she really wants to know how much she, is thankful for what I'm doing. But she just has to keep a distance so she doesn't get attacked. But Watani Tayahimba, of course, gave me loads of interviews and is very supportive. Mopreme Harding, he calls himself Mopreme Shakur now. He's Matulu's son and Tupac's stepbrother. He said on an interview with me just a few weeks ago that Tupac was a revolutionary, and that's why they killed him. So he's in agreement with the general theory of my book.
Yeah. There's another interview on YouTube I saw too where he directly says he thinks it was cops, and they said, do you want to get more specific than that? Do you have any proof? And he said, if I did and I was speaking about it, I'd be in jail. And he just left it at that. I mean, that is it's pretty definitive,
Right.
From his stepbrother. That's If Tupac was alive today, what do you think he would be? What would he be doing? Likely be doing?
Well, I think he would have his own record label because he had obviously already started his own record label, Euthanasia. So he would have been as wealthy, but probably about 5 times as wealthy as Puffy, as P. Diddy, because that's why P. Diddy is so incredibly wealthy, because he's the producer and makes the majority of the money on the records sold, the CDs sold. So he would have been unbelievably wealthy, and he would have been doing some great movies. I'm sure he was doing lots of movies. He would have written some movies because he had already written one, and he would have been incredibly influential and powerful. And for someone who's such a committed leftist activist to be that powerful, that for the powers that be, it would have been dangerous, because he would have committed his influence, his money, and everything else to making the society better. To me, for the 99%.
Yeah. So Puff Daddy has the rights to Tupac stuff?
No, just his own stuff. He makes an incredible amount off of Biggie's, CDs,
and also other people's music. Yeah,
and other people. He
Puffy
has record labels.
This is well known about Puff Daddy. I'll say this is that he's well known to put people on his label, and the ones that make a lot of money for his label, he still never pays.
Really? I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, he's notoriously a non-payer of artists for the royalties.
Well, that's too bad. But I think he's to me, he's relatively neutral in all this, because there was an attack on him. There was someone shot at him, and then after that shooting in New York, it came on New York television that the New York City government spent the most money ever to put someone away on gun possession. They tried so hard to put him away on gun possession.
They did too, yeah.
And that was when he was involved with the Hip Hop Summit Action Network.
That's true, too, wasn't it? Yeah, that was the time. Mm-hmm. That certainly was.
So that's probably scared him off.
What's so weird, too, like recently, like Anton Beatty is on YouTube. A lot of people probably know him and follow him. I've watched some of his stuff. He's a very good skeptic, very powerful voice, influence, and he kind of gave you a rough time. And I know that, we don't even need to get into it. I don't want to get into it. But basically what I want to ask, he kept saying that Tupac had been political early in his career, went to jail, and then when he came out, he was lowest common denominator, battling with everybody, not a leader, not political. And I kind of thought maybe Anton might be right for a little while. But recently, it's been obvious to me that that's just not true. And especially if you look at what MC Hammer has said and some of the stuff that's even been released, where MC Hammer had a press conference with Snoop Dogg and Tupac, where they were going to start a new political party, they were going to get active, they were going to make change. When you look at Thug Life that he put out, which was a code for street gangs to work together, when he did a summit, it seems like that's all BS. That Tupac was about to become way more political than he ever had. Is that? Am I right on that? Like, what do you say to that criticism?
Yeah, well, Anton Beatty is slightly right, but all that you said is certainly correct and true. What happened was when Tupac was in prison, they used something called penal coercion, and Amnesty International cited penal coercion as the closest thing the government had to brainwashing. I think they actually have something that's closer to brainwashing, but nonetheless, the penal coercion tactics that they list, Amnesty International listed, that are being used in U.S. prisons, I showed how every single one of those tactics of penal coercion was used against Tupac. And what that does is they use those penal coercion tactics against activists to mess up their minds so that they can't be as effective of activists. So Tupac Shakur, for example, he was in solitary confinement for 10 hours, 11 months. That's 23 and a half hours a day with just 4 walls all around you in this tiny cell. And that really messes up your mind when you're in that. I mean, it doesn't matter how strong your mind is, how committed you are, it's going to mess your mind up. But the other tactics they use have been proven to mess prisoners' minds up. And they used them all against Tupac, and so I show that that Death Row Records continued some of those penal coercion tactics when Tupac got out of prison, to keep triggering some PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder in Tupac. So I don't think he was at his best, and I think he was running scared, and he knew he told Watani Tayyembe, he cried on his shoulder, saying, "I know I'm selling my soul to the devil by signing with Death Row." Because Watani had to disconnect himself and his whole New African People's Organization from Tupac at that point, out of fear for what Death Row really was, and fear of all this stuff going on in Death Row, all this drug trafficking and other illegal stuff going on in there, from taking his organization down with it. So Death Row did cause Tupac to write his most negative lyrics. for that next album, All Eyes on Me. I'm sorry, not All Eyes on Me. I mean, All Eyes on Me.
That's the first.
And then finally, the last album, Tupac started getting back to his political lyrics. Like, of course, White Man's World is obviously a very political song. Against All Odds says, Haitian Jack and James and Jimmy Henchman knew you were working for the Feds, meaning the Federal Bureau of Investigation, when you set me up and wet me up, meaning had me shot. So then, obviously, his last album got political again. But he was running a little scared. He wasn't acting himself, for the 11 months when he was out of jail until he was killed. But at the same time, behind the scenes, he was trying to do things again. He was meeting with Sonika Shakur, Monster Cody Scott, the acclaimed author of the book Monster, the memoir about going from gang leader to socialist. So he was doing the things you just said, with Snoop Dogg, speaking at events. I got a picture of him speaking at an activist event with Snoop Dogg right behind him, and of course with meeting with other activists. So Anton Beatty's slightly right, but everything you said is more right, and what I'm talking about with the other work is very important, because he was getting the Bloods and Crips to call peace truces and start turning on to activism all around California, and it was spreading nationwide, and that was a huge threat to U.S. intelligence.
Yeah, and the contract too. I mean, when Tupac was in jail to get released, he signed a contract with Death Row on a napkin,
right?
With Suge Knight and the other gentleman, I forget his name.
Dave Kenner. Dave Kenner, who's the real head of Death Row Records.
Yeah, so let's put it this way. I don't know if Tupac even knew. I want to ask you that. Did Tupac know that David Kenner was a part owner of Death Row, number one? And secondly, where in any court of law, anywhere in this country, are you allowed to be the lawyer for an artist and the label owner? That is the number one conflict of interest you could ever have against yourself. Like, Tupac didn't have a lawyer. He had his lawyer was the owner.
Right.
Like that, to sign a contract in a piece of paper on a napkin while you're in jail, so that you can get out of jail without a lawyer. With a lawyer, actually, the lawyer is the owner. Mm-hmm. How easy would it have been for Tupac to go into any court in this country and have that contract thrown out?
Yeah, I don't think he knew that. I mean, in terms of, well, the contract was highly specious. To get it thrown out was another story, just because of the fact that obviously Death Row had huge power.
Yeah.
Because of the fact that Tupac and Interscope actually put up a huge amount of money. Tupac's bail was about I believe it was like $3 million to get out of jail. And they put up about $1.4 million before, at the early on. So all up was about the same amount, maybe $1.5 million. And within days, several days after, we're talking, 11 months in prison, after several days released from jail, after Death Row put up that money. So obviously they had huge, high-level connections. And so, and I argue those were U.S. intelligence type of high-level connections. And so, Tupac, he suspected some of this. He wasn't sure. I don't know if he knew that Dave Kenner was part owner of Death Row Records or not, but, it was found later on that what Dave Kenner did is he started something called Godfather Records, or Godfather's Entertainment, as an umbrella company to Death Row, when he had originally set up Death Row with Harry O. Harris, or his name was Michael Harry O. Harris.
Who was a major drug dealer.
Right, he was a major drug dealer. And so in my book I show how not only was he a major drug dealer, Michael Harry O. Harris, but he was also one of the two understudies of Freeway Ricky Ross. And the people over top Freeway Ricky Ross were connected to the CIA. And that was shown in Gary Webb's book, the famous San Jose Mercury News reporter who won a Pulitzer Prize and uncovered the CIA crack cocaine scandal with the Contras. And so he wrote an excellent book called Dark Alliance based on his newspaper.
And if you look at what happened to Gary Webb. He was critically acclaimed in the beginning. He was backed up by his newspaper. Mm-hmm. It got out, and then slowly his newspaper and everyone else started undercutting him. And he couldn't find work anymore, and they totally tore him apart. And I think it's obvious now today that he was right. He had the story. He was right on the mark. And the guy killed himself or was murdered, depending on, you know. Right. I mean, whether they kill you by your own hand, by isolating you and making, you know, all those around you leave, or they actually do it, what difference does it really make? You know what I mean?
Right.
It's just, it's shocking.
The CIA Inspector General, you know, said in 1998 that the CIA was drug trafficking. That, you know, basically Gary Webb was right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but his life was already ruined. His career was ruined, and
It's just this. You see this over, and I see it a lot when I look at this. It seems like this is a common. It's so common that how can you not think that there is more to than that meets the eye? It's too much for coincidence, you know. Like there is no big smoking gun. And I like a lot of what Tupac said in his last CDs was last songs, that when he talked about like the word Illuminati and all that, he said I'm not really focusing on that. I'm focused on the brothers flipping. Like, you know, basically he was referencing what I'm talking about, the people around you flipping. Not the big powers, because I got to worry about what's in front of me. I got to do the activism here in my backyard. If I can work with gangs and get gangs united, that's what I need to do. And that's what I love about Pac, is that he really had an activist mind that anyone can use in any movement. I get so much knowledge and inspiration from his music and words and strategy and the way to think in life, and kind of turning over the universal truths. I can't believe he was only, 24, 25? How old was he when he died?
25, he just turned 25 a few months before when he died, I
mean, it's amazing. Imagine
it is amazing. He's the hardest working guy, I think, I've ever known, you know, in terms of, not known personally, of course, but just even known about. You know, his personal assistant, Molly Monjosi, told me that he worked 24/7. Every waking moment, he was putting his work, you know, focusing on some kind of work in terms of writing lyrics, in terms of, you know, creating all he created. And that's how he did it. That's how he created, you know, what was, it must have been like 8 to 10 albums before he died, you know, within an 11-month period. You know, after coming out of jail, for only being out of jail only like 10 or 11 months, you know, he created so many albums. That's why they keep coming out. And he also, you know, acted in 3 movies in the same time in that 10 or 11-month period. It's absolutely amazing.
Non-stop work.
Yeah.
What like look, if you look back on like some of the things he said, do you think that he would be endorsing Obama? Like in politics today, I know it's hard to speak for someone, but do you feel he would be someone who would be down with Obama right now, or would he be supporting someone like Jill Stein or even Ron Paul, who's a Republican?
Well, I think he would have been really happy about a black president and that, you know, that glass ceiling being broken. And so that's great, but then, you know, of course, once Obama started attacking other countries, I'm sure he would have been speaking out against that, because, you know, just bombing so many other countries, it's Tupac says we've got money for war, but we can't feed the poor. So Tupac was very anti-war, and you know, and so for that matter, you know, after he saw all the things we were doing overseas, he probably would have supported someone like, you know, Cynthia McKinney for president, or maybe, you know, Green Party's Jill Stein, or Roseanne Barr for that matter, with the Peace and Freedom Party.
Or maybe he'd be running himself this year.
Or maybe he would have been running himself, because he did talk about starting a new political party for all the you know, he called it lost tribe people. He called
of all races, all creeds. I love that.
That's
like
what he said,
all you lost tribe motherfuckers. That's what I love. Like that's, man. So what do you, let me ask another question about race too, because there's a lot coming out with the Black Panthers right now, the new Black Panthers, and what I hear in the media is that certain individuals within that group have said that they should kill all white people, kill Jews.
Oh, God.
What do you think about that? I mean, you're a white guy. You're working with the Black Panthers in some ways and getting this history and documenting it. Is there still COINTELPRO going in there? Do you think that people are twisted? Like, what is the status with new Black Panthers and Black Panthers? Do you know enough about that to even comment?
Well, I do know that some former Black Panthers told me that the Black Panther organization that started in the 1960s refused to endorse the new Black Panthers, and that's why they had to put new before their name, because it didn't match their their agenda and their policies and their thoughts and feelings on things. So they they don't agree with a lot of what the new Black Panthers put forth. Now, I do think there are some great individuals in the new Black Panthers. I knew a guy named I forget his name now. Shakur, his name is, who's a great activist, great guy, a good rapper, and he's
in New York. Is he related to Tupac?
What's that?
Is he related to Tupac?
No, he's not. He just renamed himself after Tupac, but he's got he's a great guy and he's got a lot going for him. But now he joined the new Black Panther Party, and so I think there's good individuals like him in the new Black Panthers, but the organization as a whole, I don't know about it. Obviously, the Black Panthers won't let them share their name, and so there's bound to be infiltration. There's bound to be things, good and bad leaders amongst them, but the bad leaders obviously are saying some really wild things. So.
Yep. Oh, you on YouTube, like one of the biggest viral things on Tupac is that some people think he's still alive, that he somehow tricked everybody and is like Elvis. You want to comment on that?
Well, it'd be great, but none of the evidence that I found said he's still alive. So I just if someone showed some serious evidence that he was still alive, that'd be great to see. But I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
So I mean, I guess that my focus was looking at all the incidents of the of the attempts on his life, and he almost had 9 lives. It was incredible what he struggled through. Because I argue, I showed the evidence that U.S. intelligence tried to kill him at least 5 times before they actually succeeded.
Let's talk about some of the other things that they did, like the rape, because I think that is the biggest. Like, there's so many strange things that happened to Tupac, but that whole rape thing, it's just so obvious he didn't do anything wrong, and then he totally got railroaded. Tell people what happened, the evidence, like how they convicted him. It was just shocking when you look at it.
Well, first thing that has to be realized is that this came after what I show is the 4th attempt on his life. So there was already huge targeting of him. 4 attempts on his life before this sexual assault incident. And what happened with the sexual assault incident is he got led to a New York dance club by a new music promoter, not one new, but just a music promoter named Haitian Jacques Agnon. His real name was Jacques Agnon. He was Haitian, and he's the Haitian Jack that Tupac refers to in that song Against All Odds, saying knew he was working for the feds. Now, he didn't know it then, though. He knew it much later when they got his rap sheet. But so Haitian Jacques Agnon led him to this dance club, introduced him to this woman. This woman, Ayanna Jackson, her name is, left her date, went out with Tupac on the dance floor. Witnesses said she proceeded, and she admitted this in court, that she proceeded to unzip his fly on the middle of the dance floor, take out his penis, and give him a blowjob. Now, she said she just kissed his penis in court. She said, I just kissed his penis, and I have all the court documents of her testimony. But, witnesses there said she gave him a blowjob on the dance floor, okay? Now, that's all fine. It's strange. It's highly strange, but I'm not going to judge her for it. But then she goes home, she leaves her date there completely, goes home with Tupac to his hotel and has sex with him. She then calls him for the next few nights and says, I love the way you fuck, and I want to come back for more. And so Tupac was at an extremely fancy hotel that had an answering machine, voicemail, and so he had these messages from her on his voicemail. Haitian Jack helps arrange her to come back a few nights later when Haitian Jack's there with some other people and Tupac's there, and Haitian Jack gets some drinks for everyone, and so Tupac ends up going back with her to his hotel room. Now, in court, they both admitted that there was oral sex between Tupac and this woman, Ayanna Jackson. Tupac said after the oral sex, Haitian Jack came in with an associate of his and another guy, Tupac's road manager, Charles Man Fuller, just stood in the doorway and didn't come fully in. But Haitian Jack and his associate both came over to where Ayanna Jackson was, Tupac was, and Tupac just left the room, and that was it. And so now, of course, this woman says that Tupac helped them, sodomize her. Now, the jury found that Tupac was found was not guilty of sodomy, not guilty of attempted sodomy, not guilty of assisting sodomy, not guilty of all major charges. The only charge they found him guilty of was touching her butt against her will. They put in the words by forcible compulsion. Okay, so he wasn't found guilty of assisting sodomy.
Touching her ass. After she already gave him a blowjob. And the thing is, Haitian Jack turned out to be, this is documented now too, he was definitely a federal informant, right?
Right, yeah, agent. They call it informant, but it's really an agent.
Basically what we're saying is,
he was paid. FBI.
He's receiving money for the FBI for information to set people up.
No, not just for information, but receiving money by FBI as an agent to do all kinds of things.
Okay.
He was involved in major crimes up and down the East Coast, according to his rap sheet. Michael Warren got his rap sheet, and his major crimes up and down the East Coast, pages and pages long. All the cases were dismissed. And Michael Warren's a longtime activist lawyer who said that's a sure sign of a government intelligence agent. And then this guy, Jacques Aignant, ends up being, accused of the same things, of touching this woman's butt against her will. He pleaded guilty to that. He got 2 misdemeanors for that, which is like, traffic tickets.
No jail.
Tupac gets 1.5 to 4.5 years in a maximum security prison.
It's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't make sense. It just doesn't.
It really is unbelievable. And
now Haitian Jack is hiding. I heard he went back to Haiti. There's been some real stories covered, like mainstream press on his story and who he is, and it's just like it does see. I mean, how can anyone deny these facts? Like that, you can sit here all day and say we're crazy, we're making stuff up, but this is what happened.
Yeah. The editor of the New Yorker magazine came out with an excellent article in 1997, right after Tupac's death, and she got a lot of acclaim for this article. But she basically said Haitian Jack's lawyer was a long-time Policemen's Benevolence Association lawyer, and she also said that Haitian Jack's case was severed from Tupac's case, which is, she said, was highly unusual. So she found a lot of foul play around that.
Well, it's not unusual if you're a federal agent or, if they're making a deal with you, right? Right? That's not, it's unusual if if it's a straight up prosecution against both of them, but it's not if you're an agent.
Yeah, and it's interesting. It was right near that time was the fourth attack on Tupac, where 2 supposedly off-duty police officers, white police officers, ran over to Tupac's car, smashed the window of his car, according to eyewitnesses, with the butt of a gun and shot at him. And he merely rolled out of the car, grabbed the security guard's gun, and shot back at them, and then hit them a few times in the butt and leg, and in the lower back. And Tupac got completely let off of that because witnesses said it, like I just stated it, that these guys ran over Tupac's car and shot at him first. And I argue, of course, that was another murder attempt because the gun they were using was stolen from a police evidence locker, and they call that a throwaway gun. And a police officer, I have the court transcript of a police officer saying in court, well, they use that, if it's a kill, if they kill someone that they weren't supposed to kill, and they just throw it away because it's from an evidence locker and it's unmarked. They can get away with it and it can't be traced back to them.
Wouldn't there be some kind of trace though if it was an evidence locker, because you have to sign out for those sort of things?
They stole it. They stole it from the evidence locker. It was an unmarked gun that was stolen from the evidence locker.
Yeah, if they're going to use, basically that gun was the gun they used wasn't the service revolver. It wasn't a registered gun. It wasn't a legal gun. Whether they got it from, like, what John's saying is, like, if a cop pulls me over today and I have marijuana, and let's say I'm in New Hampshire and it's illegal, the cop can do 2 things. He can take the weed and put it into evidence, right? Or he can just take it home with him, right?
Right.
And a lot of times the cops will take the guns home.
And John's saying this was stolen from the actual evidence room.
No, this was stolen from the evidence locker, but there's no. It was an unmarked gun that that you can't be traced back to the cops. If they stole it, if they didn't just take, sign it out, if they stole it, they can't be traced back to them.
There you go. 617-606-4122 is the phone number, and we're talking to John Potash. We're almost like, getting to the end of the show. The book, the info, you can look it up. It's the FBI War on Tupac Shakur and Black Leaders. This has been going on for a long time. It's obviously with if you look back, especially like Malcolm X and Martin Luther King.
Yeah.
A lot of this stuff has happened, and I just...
that's why, the subtitle of my book, covers like the span of it, just to show how the same tactics that were used against Tupac and his family, and even some of the same personnel were used against all these black leaders the last 4 or 5 decades. So the subtitle is the U.S. Intelligence's Murderous Targeting of Tupac, MLK, Malcolm, Panthers, Hendrix, Marley, rappers, and linked ethnic left.
There you go. Bob Marley was shot too. Right. He was definitely shot for being political. There's not even a question out there in my mind.
Yeah, the shooters actually admitted to him and his manager when they were caught, and they said the CIA paid us to shoot
because he was working with he was working for the opposition candidate in the elections in Jamaica,
right?
Against the U.S. favored opposition. We have a phone call. Let's take the phone call. Let's see who we have on the phone. Hello, caller. How you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good.
Who's this?
How are you?
Is this Spencer?
Yes, it is.
Oh, thanks for calling today, Spencer. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. How are you, buddy?
Excellent. Are you listening to the show?
I am.
Do you have a question or comment for our guest, John Potash?
I was just listening to the whole thing, and it's very interesting to know that Tupac potentially had post-traumatic stress disorder, and it's funny how you guys were saying that he definitely had that activist mind, and he made songs also about activism, including like marijuana in his lyrics, and I think if he was alive today, he would definitely be still a great activist for what's going on in the country and the different states with coming out to events and making sure he's still heard.
Absolutely. Yep. So you like the show today, and you appreciate.
I've been listening the whole time, buddy.
Awesome. Well, thank you for calling in, Spencer. I always glad to hear that you're listening, and I appreciate the call.
All right, Mike.
Anything else you want to leave everyone with? Say anything?
I also wanted to say I had recently heard of the passing of a great marijuana activist and musician, Pakalika, has passed away from the Cottonmouth Kings.
Oh, wow. Yeah, we did hear that. That's thanks for bringing that up. Appreciate that.
So I just wanted to say rest in peace to him, and God bless him and his family.
Yes. And Leonard Peltier is someone that you support, right?
Oh, yes. I made an event on Facebook. It's next Wednesday. There's a Leonard Peltier call-in day. Garrett Kirkland had been, helping me out doing a little thing with that. We're going to be calling in, urging the White House to, free him for what's been going on with him, and it's kind of like a he's politically targeted,
Yep. John, do you have something to say about Leonard Peltier? Spencer is involved in some activism on that. I think you might have something to say on that too, right? Oh, we lose John? I guess we
John should still be there, no?
No, I think we might have lost him. Uh-oh.
Oh, I'm still here.
Oh, you are? Okay. Did you hear some of that conversation? Did our caller... I don't know if you can hear our caller. Can you hear our caller?
I cannot.
Okay. He was talking about Leonard Peltier, too. Do you have any kind of knowledge on Leonard?
Myself?
Yes.
Oh, I just know that...
No, I was talking to John Potash. Is he still there?
No, he's not.
Oh, we did lose John.
I think he misunderstood as we answered the call.
Okay, so we lost John.
Yeah.
Peltier's an interesting case.
If you want, I can just tell you a brief basis of what's going on. He spent over 30 plus years in federal prison for a crime that he did not commit. They provided falsified evidence, hid evidence against his his freedom, being innocent, and it's just a whole bunch of nonsense that's going on. And I think along with everything that's going on, it's just really unfortunate to hear about his case, and it definitely he's along with a lot of other political targeted people.
Yeah, it does happen. No question. It's happened in the past, and it came out within the government in the 70s that it did happen. And the mainstream media and mainstream America seems like they believe that it ended in the 70s and that this no longer happens. And I think John Potash today definitely showed us that it does happen in the modern world. And you can't deny that the hip-hop police exist anymore. They definitely do exist. And to think that they wouldn't be targeting the entertainment industry that we really focused on today with Tupac, I think it's like delusional if you think that they're not going to target the most powerful mind-shaping force in the country, which is music and entertainment and movies and television. This is the place that people's minds
activism too,
and activism,
you know?
Yeah, and activism. And you're absolutely right. Active. I'm so glad you said that. Thank you, Spencer.
Right. Yeah.
Thanks for calling in.
Look what's happening with Mark Emery. I mean.
Yeah. Now people are attacking him, like he's in jail, and this is the why.
I read a post on Jody Emery's page the other day. She's like, I'm receiving, people. There's still people out there who hate, like she was receiving, stuff on her page, stupid comments and stuff like that. And she's like, kindly, I would, if you don't want to, say these things, then kindly don't post on my page. I'd like that privacy as well. And, I'm sure, she definitely deserves it as much as anybody else in this world.
Absolutely. And I'm not saying everyone out there posted nasty comments is with the government.
No.
But you know what? There is a program going on, and people do get, like, I think that's what John Potash was even saying.
John's actually calling back right now.
Oh, he is. Let's get him back on the phone. Get a couple minutes. Hey, John.
Hey, Mike.
You still there?
Yeah, I'm here now.
All right. We're going to, Spencer, we appreciate your call, and thank you so much for calling in.
I got cut off for a little while there.
All right. We're back with John. And, John, yeah, we were really getting into, with the caller, he was bringing up some things that have been going on with even the marijuana reform movement. With Jody Emery, her husband's in jail, and she's kind of being attacked. He was also bringing up Leonard Peltier. Do you kind of, American Indian, so, we're also dealing with it in other communities, not just African American community. Do you see that this is... Then this is the point that I was making, is that a lot of America knows about COINTELPRO, but the problem is they believe it ended in the 70s, that's something that used to be in the past, and that it doesn't happen today. It happens all over, doesn't it?
Yeah, COINTELPRO agent named M. Wesley Swearingen came out with a book called FBI Secrets, where he says all the same parts of COINTELPRO, the counterintelligence program, continued. They just used different names for what they were doing with it.
Do you have a feeling like a lot of like the TMZ stuff is COINTELPRO?
I don't know.
Yeah, because it just seems like to me that a lot of this kind of the TMZ, the way that they attack people, they pick on certain people that are weak, the Hollywood celebrities, and they all seem to just pile on. And a lot of times I do feel like it's calculated. I'm kind of, myself and my activism with marijuana reform, I've been kind of questioning some press, some other folks out there and their actions versus other activists. And, I do think it exists. I think that there's a lot of money to be made on different sides. And I do think that people do think for ulterior motives. So I'm glad that you came on today and kind of filled us in about Tupac, about what he was dealing with.
Thanks so much for having me on, Mike.
Yeah, so the last thing I guess I want to ask you before you leave is, what can people do now? I know that we talked about the past, but going forward, what can people do to kind of get the word out and maybe get some resolution? How can we get this investigated? How can we find out what happened? How can we push it? And where can they find more information about you and buy your books and get your word out?
Well, my book and DVD, including 10-minute excerpts from the DVD. There's compilations of excerpts from the DVD on my website, www.fbiwarontupac.com. Again, that's fbiwarontupac.com. And the book and DVD are both sold by Amazon. But I just suggest that you just have the information and the facts, and before you talk to other people about it, and you can show them the documents. Pictures of the documents are in the book. Pictures of the documents, government documents, are also in the DVD. And just spread the word. But there's some good groups that are doing activism around these issues, such as Fred Hampton Jr.'s Prisoners of Conscience Committee, and there's an ad and information on his group in the book and the DVD. There's also Tupac's old group, the New African Peoples Organization, which is doing some great free the land work down in the Mississippi. But there's people working in solidarity with his group and the Malcolm X grassroots movement group all around the country. So those are some of the groups, and there's other groups listed in the book that you can find out about and get involved with.
That's great. I want to see this. I'm so support the work that you're doing, and I gotta
thanks so much,
commend
Mike.
you for the time that you put in, and thank you for being on the show. And anything I can do to spread the word, you let me know.
Thanks again, Mike. It's great, and guys, please support Mike's show and independent media because it's so necessary. So thanks again, Mike. Take care now.
All right, have a great day, John. And that was John Potash.